당도 전주 장주샘 이 남자 팽이 리우 시베 전주 그 생각도 돼 디고다 심제 탐제 농하다 자와다 심제 탐제 디기 주의기 된다라 디슈 심제 탐제 산주 고반 토벌 쇼 세비게다 신년비 장주샘디 다 샘상보 남네 샘상보 초도 규바데스 근데 자 배낭아 가사 기신 녀마들라 직된나 저기 파마디게 소설이야 부울이야 배제와 첨부 쉬우지 직장바다 제와 쉬우지고레스 근데 이나야 심제 탐제를 팬비기 팬야 되나 선조고 버터버 슈스페 셈바상보 디나제 요 말레스 이나싱아 저기 직된나 미달 하지는 하디 개발도 파파 아니 라다 되네게 장선 지딘비 장선다 라 창발라 소바 대소이나야 네 세메실라 소바게 안 지딘비 람용오 규베 세메실라 소바 냠좀 랭교레 랑기 안 코라당 누샬라 데슬레 셈바상보다 되네게 용거데 이나 셈제 탐지기 되는 산요고바 토르쇼니비 자시셈디 요마레스 데네자 장주 샘디 배마세게 지 평행침보다 자침보 쉬우시리 있는 데네기 저기 점브렌리아 함미다 하당 데네기 창발하라 소바 깨라침보 창발라 소바 이네 디수규라 데네기 장주 셈비 말와스 지나 데네 장주 샘디 배마세게 계침보 자침보 쉬우리 세게 생각 디고 이 주로와데.
Good evening. So continuing to look at the benefits of bodhicitta as presented in the first chapter of the Bodhisattvas, of engaging the Bodhisattva's way of life. And last week we looked at how this altruistic mind of enlightenment, which has as its deepest yearning to guide beings to develop themselves so that they attain a state freed from all suffering and a state of lasting stable happiness. There is no altruistic mind that is comparable to bodhicitta. In the verse we looked at the 23rd verse, which was amongst those we looked at last week, comparison was made between bodhisattvas and other beings, starting with our parents, that despite the remarkable love parents do have for their children, parents do not have such a love for other beings, let alone all beings. Moreover, parents have no understanding of the path to liberation, and despite wanting the very best for their children, they cannot guide their children to attain liberation. Moreover, amongst other great beings, but nevertheless still bound in samsara, gods or worldly venerated sages, or even the Brahmas, despite these beings having a number of remarkable qualities, even such as the Brahmas who have trained well in the four immeasurables, none of them have a mind that is comparable to bodhicitta. So therefore, we see that compared to bodhisattvas, no being can be posited as their equal. Bodhicitta truly is a remarkable and precious mind.
Simjen deta nilangwe rangyu dundu dirisem milamdu ya mamina shenyu dundu kalakiyes.
Moving to the text and the 24th verse, if those sentient beings have never previously had such an intent for their own sake, not even in their dreams, how could it have arisen for others?
Simjen deta nilangwe rangyu dundu dirisem sidu. Simjen deda nila ngwe sido simjen deda sede de jinyel shegi kasan nima shegi ang zugi jidengi da mida milia da jimi jiking ang zugi da de lam nyamlen janju sembige lam nyamlen majigin le shigruwa mi denegi anjig misunam chembo wangda chembo gera chembo yore ane rangi pamada pamalo sobadang ane denegi ane lada mile kyabada boba ladang 데네기 지딘베 장선라 소바다 데네 창발라 소바세 셈젠 데다 세데 데솔 고고레 원디나신 콘솔라 안 데네기 니 셈젠 데다 니라 응외시데 셈젠 데솔야 rangi kordang, and rangi puchudang, Tisulia, Zawada, Jamba, Nipunju, Deniki, Zawada, Jamba, Yunguri, Semsampo Yunguri, Yinaya, the one rangi dundus, Sanji is Nyomon Kunseba, Jiva Tamje Bambe, Sanjo Kopan, Toba Show Sibi, Toba Chigi, Sibi, Samodi, Geo Vesene, Geo Marejere, Deda Nila, rangi dundu, Diresimche, Deniki Semki, Rangi, Rani digi dugore, dungal dugo mare, chasa diso chasa rani dewa dugo, dungal dugo mare, dewa dugo rani dewa cho sanjo gobanji tobar chigi, tobar sho sepe samlodi, rani dewa, rani ki dunduya, dini sanjo goban tobar dugo semdi kiyo mare sorda, semjen dida nila on rangi dundu diri semsede.
Looking at the first two lines, if those sentient beings have never previously had such an intent for their own sake, those sentient beings refers to those that we've just looked at, that we looked at in the previous verse. So these are referring to beings who, looking at the variety of beings who have not yet generated the path of bodhisattvas in their continuum, have not yet generated uncontrived bodhicitta, looking at them from the perspective, in the grouping of being parents, or being amongst those who are famous and powerful, in groupings such as gods and venerated sages and the Brahmas, and recognizing that whilst such beings have many good qualities, some have generated powerful love and powerful compassion, such as in the trainings of the Four Immeasurables. None of them, though, have cultivated yet the determination of a bodhisattva. None of them have generated bodhicitta. And whilst all of these beings want to abide in happiness, freed of suffering, and some of them have generated great qualities in progressing towards attaining such a state for themselves, none of them have developed bodhicitta, the determination to lead each and every sentient being to enlightenment. None of these beings have generated such a thought.
지사 탈도 바데 산요고 바자 디네 랑기 디기 된다게 랑 디기 주비에 된다라야 아니 산요고 바 토벌 치긴 세비기 탈도 산요고 바 토벌 쇼스베 삼로디 아니 계제 아는 공고 말게요 말해서지 랑기 된도 디리 셈세 디스모르와
In the second line, such an intent for their own sake. So they've never previously had such an intent for their own sake. This is specifically referring to the determination to achieve the state of supreme happiness that is completely freed of every trace of fault. In other words, a state of enlightenment. None of these beings have generated such a determination to attain Buddhahood.
아니 곰기요 말지 밀람 두야 마미 나서다 지사다 데니게 응오수기에 곰야데 매바마세 밀람나야 아니 제 데니게 산지 셈제 가서 녀모 군시 바샤데 제바 pompe 산조 고본 토벌 쇼 셈베 삼로데 산조 고본 토벌 디비게 삼로 셈디 밀람나야 게요요 말스 밀람도야 당오수기에 대오수 응원이 게죠 곰야데 매바마세 밀람도야 게요요 말스 밀람도야가 밀람도야 마미 나세.
And in fact, these beings, whilst not, as we saw in the first two lines, have not directly or explicitly generated the determination to become a Buddha, they haven't even done so in their dreams. And that's the third line, not even in their dreams.
이내 무슨 되네 매나야 잠잠 밀람나 니고도 밀람나야 풀줘야로 남도 풀야로 다디네 통화 뭐여로 받아 무슨 되네 매나야 밀람나라 하여로 봐 어디나시 다 장쇼심 명몽 군제 바차 제바 pompe pompa 탈도 받아 최담정 원소도 봐 탈침이 이些아니 산지요 고파디 토버 데비게스 톱되게 삼로디 아니 밀람나야 되네 중요해요 말했어 이거 말했어.
So none of us here, of course, being human beings, we don't have wings. So none of us have explicitly used our wings. But we have, in our dreams at least, dreamt of flight. But here these beings, not even in their dreams, have they given rise to the thought to attain the state where they've abandoned the afflictions together with their seeds and imprints, and thereby developed all good qualities to the level of perfection. So not even in their dreams have they given rise to such an aspiration.
Bendigo sanjo gobon topa de diga samlo de mosu kewa ma keba ma ze milam duya de kenyung me bare dene kenyung me na shen yi do no kala kes shen semjan 탐지 gi 동화 세야 다 심전 탐지기 되게 주변에 된다 이 산요 고보 토プ쇼 세베 삼로 de 가호지 이랬을 때는 게요 말했어 요 말해서 혼술이 되니 삼로 요 말해서 그러다.
So if these beings haven't explicitly given rise to the determination to attain enlightenment, to lead all beings to a state freed of suffering as well, nor have they done so in their dreams, then certainly, if they haven't done so in their dreams, they certainly will not have given rise to such a wish for others. So I didn't express it so clearly. So I'll say it again. So if these beings haven't given rise to determination to attain the state of greatest happiness, where one is completely freed of the afflictions, their seeds, and their stains, if they haven't given rise for such a wish for themselves, not even in their dreams, then how could they have given rise to such a wish for others?
파마디게 소소부레 베제오 쇼다 잠제 여바레 나라당 장소당 창발로 소바랑기 코당 안에 직대솔야 안직 잠바단 제베기 도션 공고르데네 삼자 탐지기도 산요고바 토브로 쇼셈베 장유 셈디 귤레기지 공고 말레스 귤레기요 말레스 안디네게 안지게 마케바 마제 밀람도야 안셈제 탐지기도나 아까서 산요고바 토브로 지긴 세베 삼라 밀람도야 게요요 말레스지 송고로다. To
summarize this verse then, if we think about the great qualities that so many beings possess, such as the genuine love that parents have for their children, the deep wish for everything good to come for their children, as well as if we think of the qualities of God's venerated sages, some of which will include those who have generated paths of renunciation and paths progressing towards the state of an arhat, attaining the state of an arhat. Those great beings, as well as even the Brahmas who have cultivated the four immeasurables, none of them have given rise to the determination for themselves to attain the supreme happiness of enlightenment. So if they haven't given rise to such a thought for themselves, explicitly, nor even in their dreams, for sure they couldn't have given rise to it for others.
파마제부 파마제겐래야 전주선보 요마리베스 안에 장송디게래 라디게리아 전주선보 라 전주선보 요마리베스 장송디게다 창바라 디술이야 안에 전주선보 인간 파마제겐 연구로 와서 안에 안 전주선보 인간 다 연구로 와서 안 장송디게 전주선보 장송 연구로 와서 안에 제자다 파마다 하다 장소다 사와라 소비규래 진짜 샘제한테 산요고보 토벌쇼츠베 전주선규래 게요 말했으나 다다 책임도스 그래서는 파마래야 전주선배가 파마 연구를 하려요 전주선배 파마 요래 가서 하요래 장소를 하 가서 장소 오기베 전주선배 장소 요래 대소규래 전주선 요로 왔으나 파마다 장소 하다 장소 상비규래 되네 요 말했어야지 다다 지금 노선배게다 되는 아주 직제바제바이나 직도시네 삼다제바제바네 되네 저와다 도바 연구로 와.
Hearing this explanation, I'd imagine that you'd have a doubt, because it's being stated that amongst parents then, bodhisattvas wouldn't be found. Amongst gods, bodhisattvas wouldn't be found. And amongst venerated sages, bodhisattvas wouldn't be found. But if we think about it, surely bodhisattvas are included amongst these beings. There certainly must be parents who are bodhisattvas, gods and sages who are bodhisattvas. So such a doubt, if you think about it, should arise.
파마당 하당 장소당 차발라 소바디 요마레세디 파마 차상의 시고마다 전주심 냠레 지당의 지딘 비기 최 냠레 마지기 가서 그래 태바침 비기 최다 되게 최 마지기 파마로 시키고 당아주게 태바침이 최 냠레 마지기 되게 파마다 되게 하당 장소 아니 되게 창바 돼서 고고거다 되게 태바침 비기 최 냠레 마지기게 되게 하다 미당 장소다 창바라서 방법으로 어디서 시고다 디수기를 되게 언니치게 삼롱 지단은 가지고 지딘바 되게 지게 최기 냠는지라 마지게 되게 토려야 안디스 데솔 고고로 봐 되네자 되게 너 건조길라다 되네 자주 셈게요 말에스기고 말에 밀람도야 공고 기고 말세데 데솔 고고로 마도 다 지게 장소인다 장소 창마를 차나 라샤상을 해서다 파마 차상을 해서야 돼 고고 말 도도날을 고해야 돼 고고로다 전주 셈다 태바침 비교주 냠는 마지게 되네 고고로 데솔.
So that would be a good doubt to give rise to, because there certainly are amongst parents those who are bodhisattvas, amongst gods and sages there are those who are bodhisattvas. Therefore, the way we should understand this presentation is that it is referring to those beings who have not trained well in the Mahayana Dhamma. So those parents, sages and gods who have not trained well in Mahayana Dhamma. The comparison is being made explicitly to them, not to those who are bodhisattvas found amongst those classes of beings.
되게 캬바라체제 가서는 다들이 등아주 캬바체는 세워하고 해야 가서는 전주샘디 기주시고로 와 전주샘 기주시원자 전주샘 냠는 제되게 전주샘 받아 되게 장소다 하다 미다 장소 주인의 공주들 전주샘 냠는 지고 전주샘 요래 제가 디디줄라 아니 되게 전주샘 샘자 탐주 산조고보 토벌드베 삼는 끼ኞ요 말에 밀람대 미고 말세데 수마르와다 아니 가서 거라서는 제가 그래서 뭐라서 장주심기 냠내 마시게 태바침비 최 냠내 마시게 지당아 저기 직된비기다 지금 하다 메다 되는 장소이네다 태바침비 최 냠내 마시게인데 치료받아 낭배 장소이네 어두서 대솔 고고르다 디스 고야 임바디 세부를 차고로 봐.
We can understand that this is the intended meaning because we are in the context of looking at the qualities of bodhicitta. So therefore the comparison is being made between those who have generated bodhicitta and those who have not. So therefore we can understand that what the qualities of the bodhisattva, in other words those who have generated uncontrived bodhicitta, is being compared to those ordinary beings, those worldly beings, found amongst the vast majority of parents, gods, as well as the venerated sages.
아니 대수에는 빠야 되나 semja 탐절이야 semje리야 아니지 동안 다음에다 빠도면 봐요 안 대수 차상 세워 돼 봐. 동아 가시 세워 돼 봐. 가시 세워 되고 멤버제 동아 간시 맨나 차상 세워 돼 봐. 제가 semja 탐지게 된다 삼다. semja 탐지게 동아 세야다. 대야 안에 semja 탐지게 semja 차상 아니 방정 요모 봐 차상 바샤다 제바 빠야다. 아니 캠비연된 톱자 타둑 차상 톱투에게 산지고 봐. 대려 꼬바리 꼬긴 세베기 디 된다라 아니 게 semja 탐지 산지고 봐. 마토 탑미노 세베 톱바쇼 세베 삼로디 근데 즉 삼 디니지라 자주 셈세디 안에다 갈래하보신 전 대수기로 요 말씀도 배자 친보다 배 말씀이게도 지우지 기 친보다 판도 친부지 맞지 딩고로 맞지 진짜 디니게 삼로디 배 말씀이다 맨날 하셔야 돼 상바셔야 돼 주주돼야 다 뭐시 고주기 디니기 뭐 여바다 지그 콜 망보 여바 안된 배 왕당 여바 지우지래 돼 디니게 자주 셈디게 아니 이게요 말해서 기고 말해서다 진짜 디니기 도시네 자주 셈디 기 자친보지다 지금 시호직이 임하되 된 거거든.
And we can come to this understanding to whom this verse is referring, from again bearing in mind the context that we are in, and what we also looked at last week. I think it was from in the 22nd verse, where we looked at what really makes bodhicitta so remarkable and stand out when compared to other good qualities that other beings possess. Bodhicitta has as its object the welfare of each and every sentient being. So immeasurable numbers of beings across immeasurable realms and life forms. There is no, within the mind of the Bodhisattva, there is no nearness to some and distance from others, no bias or discrimination, feeling closer to some and distant from others. This is completely absent for the Bodhisattva. The second point was the expansiveness in terms of all forms of suffering that the Bodhisattva aspires to lead all beings to a state of being freed of. So the Bodhisattva is focused on beings attaining freedom from suffering, both the types that they have experience of, as well as those which are yet unimagined. And then the third point is about the good qualities that the Bodhisattva aspires to. So as with the previous two, these two are on a scope that cannot be compared to other beings. So all the good qualities that are possible to be developed, the Bodhisattva aspires to guide beings to develop. Whether the Bodhisattva can imagine them or is yet beyond their imagination, all of these are what the Bodhisattva holds as their objective. So therefore, when we look at the vastness of beings, the vastness of the sufferings to be liberated from, and the vastness of the good qualities to be developed, we see that what the Bodhisattva holds as an objective is incomparable to what any other being could imagine. Therefore, bodhicitta, or those who have generated uncontrived bodhicitta, are incomparable to other beings.
나데네 얼마 젠다 랑기 된도양 미준 셈진 된 셈강 셈기 린친 캬브라디 나나메바 메식 총무스.
The 25th verse. For beings do not even wish their own true good. So how could they think of such good for others' sake? This distinguished, precious mind, this wonder has now only been born.
샹다 랑기 돈도 야 미중 세데 디시 nga마시반 지바레 샹다 세데다 셴 전주심 냠림 마제게기 다 되네기 셴 하다 미다 자소다 되네 간시냐 엔디수규라 랑 치사 랑 대와 되바 농어 미되바 지바 랑기 돈다 대와 돈도 니르고 어때 이네야 네 셈전 탐 그서 묘모 바차단 제바 빠네 타르침베 산제 고파세 토벌 쇼셈베게 디돈누니베 삼로디 돈누니고 마레스랑게 샹다 랑게 돈도야 미주 데니게 탐 산제 고파 토벌 되비게 삼로디 자슈 셈디 아니 귤레 기고 마 게는 공고 마레스 게게요 마레 게는 공고요 마레스 샹다 랑게 돈도 야 미중 세제 중고 마레스.
Looking at the first two lines, for beings do not even wish their own true good, so how could they think of such good for others' sake? This then is a continuation of what we've just looked at, that those beings who have not trained well in bodhicitta, who have not yet generated bodhicitta, they do not even have the wish for themselves to attain the exalted state of enlightenment, the happiness that is beyond compare of Buddhahood, the happiness that comes from the abandonment not just of the afflictions and their seeds, but even their stains. So the practitioners who have not yet trained well in bodhicitta, They haven't given rise to such an aspiration for even themselves, so how could they have for others?
Shanda rangi dondo yang labdu yang sayadigi donda la karla gorsene shen simjen tamje sanjo goba sanjo dunga dewa digi dubya da dunga sege donda la sanjo goba tobar jigin sebe samlo taide simjen shanda gi donda la sanjo goba tobar jibe sam taide pa su shi ki ma wa ma ze soso rani gi de rani digi donda sanjo goba tobe samlo de tobde ge samlo de ki gyo ma re se rang sa tismorwa.
In the first line, we have the word even. So this indicates that these beings who have not yet trained well in bodhicitta, they don't even have the wish for their own true welfare. So how possibly could they have the aspiration to guide others to attain such a state?
Janju Semba, Janju Sem Yamleche, Janju Semba Yamleche, Jam Bene Jambada, Zewada, Nijokom, Dene Semjan Tamji Digi Tubiada, Semjan Tamji Dunga Se, Dea Semjan Dunga Senea, Sanje Sala Goya Dundala, and the Semjan Dundala, and Ditablam, Sanjo Koban Tobarchi, Sebigida, Denege Semkia, the Kansa, Janju Semba Tisore, Denege Janju Semba Semjen, Semjen Dundala, Sanjo Koban Tobarchi, Semki, you can Janju Semba Tisugi, Semja Tamjo Sanjo Koban Tobarshu, Sebiki, Semki, Sem De, and then Sem Gang, Sadi, Tisore, Semki, Sem De, the Semki Rinchin Kabar, Sem De, and the Rimuchinashin, Kabar the Pawajik. Janju Sembicula, the same Sangbin and the Chokto Yuba, and the Jig, Dila Haba making Kabar, Rimboch, Kabar Papa did contribute Janju Sembicula to your escort. Semjen Duenga, Semjen Gi Rinchin, Kabar Rinchin Kabar Pak, Kabar Disidu, Semjen Duen Gang, Janju Sembadi, Semjing, Tam Jig Dunga Seada. Digi Tubia, Semjing Donala, Sanjoko, Tobarjiki, Janju Semba Digi, Gula, and then Semjatan Sanjoko, Tobi Childo Sanjoko, Tobar Show, Sempiki, Semki Sheva, Semki Yores, Semki the Yores, Janju Sem the Yores, Denegi Janju Semdi, Semki Rinchin, the Rimbochinachi, Sem Keber, Sem Zambon, and the Keber Papa de Res.
For beings do not even wish their own true good, so how could they think of such good for others' sake? Such good for others' sake, then this refers to the aspiration of the bodhicitta, of the bodhisattva, the mind of bodhicitta itself, which is the determination to lead all beings so that they develop themselves to abandon the afflictions together with the seeds and their imprints, and thereby attain the state of enlightenment, the state freed from all suffering, abiding in the greatest form of happiness. This is what's meant as for others' sake, or the welfare of others, the purpose of others, the benefit of others. And that refers to the generation of bodhicitta, the aspiration of bodhicitta. And the verse concludes, this distinguished, precious mind, this wonder, has only now been born. So here bodhicitta is being referred to as a distinguished, precious mind, this wonder. And just to say, as an aside, in some of the other translations, and you'll see in this and following verses, I've used the word precious, they've used the word jewel, it's the same word. So here the word bodhicitta is being is being described as being distinguished, precious, and a wondrous mind.
Nyandyo da ranye yi lam nyamlen che khen jesu gi mi lam nyamlen che topo ranye da nyandyo papi gansa degi gi kurang yu khol ya semjen kurang zu khol degi chasan dunga le zhe che tarbe ko phon tobe che do kurang zu khol degi da mi dunga da khol dunga de la ja go sembe de le ya pe koyu dunga la jaduge samlo je dele tenen koyu dunga jaya dige tablam denje lam den kono loma zo la nyamlen jeju denegi je tarbe ko phalo koyagi dengi dewa tobe tarbe ko phalo koyagi dondala ane shenle pambe semgi thone ande so shengi donda samta shenle ya dene tarbe lam denba yunguro wada deso ne be ma sem sangbo wa sem sangbo because semjen koyu dunga tada le je tarbe ko phalo kiye ge dondala se samtan지 것을 네 코로나로 로마 체도집에 두절라 람된지 두시네 지안에 판바주고래 디나시 당연하지 샘전 양직미 코비 동안에 차도 동안 코안 나선을 개발도 동안 빠도 매번 용하지 아주 닝제 선배게다 마소 동안에 타고도 하다 미고 톱나다 마소 동안에 타지 타미기 디기 용하데 배 야보리도 와 선배게 삼단 되니게 전대신 나중에 동안에 타야기 된다 되니게 바 삼편배 삼다제 양미 지게 개와치만 하다 미고 토야기 기부 중에 남일인 바 덴제 언제래 페버드근 삼로데 디하셈상보로 와다 오늘 셈상보 디네 마주이지 데니게 탈비오 고발라 개와 탈비오 고발로 꽤 꿔버디베 셈상보게 탈비오 람된 탈비오 람로 꿔버지바 개와치마 마수 동안에 타라제네 안지 하다 미고 토야기 삼다 데레 데니게 람된지 냠는지 덴비게 삼로디게나 펜베스 펜마스 펜셈 야고로 와다 데레 다 딜레 하고 디가서 샘전 탐제 녀모 바샤다자 바제 아니 산유고방 토베 꾼군세 윤전군의 토바지베게 삼로디 다 디솔에 삼로 개발 포가 자도요와 진짜 디네자 전주심디 샘상반의 개발도 포바 딜레 하고 메반자 네 개발도 포바래 세지 네 디송거로 와다 돈다디로와 개발 포바이 김전로시
Amongst the varying classes of beings, having remarkable love and compassion is something not exclusive to bodhisattvas. It certainly is found amongst hearers and solitary realizers, especially amongst those who are Arya beings. So these are practitioners who have given rise to a sincere determination to strive single-pointedly, wholeheartedly, to gain freedom from the sufferings of samsara. And having generated paths in their continuum, are making good progress to attaining this goal. And with the generation of these good qualities within them, they will have strong love and compassion for other beings, because these hearers and solitary realizers, or those of that lineage, will have clearly come to recognize a variety of suffering that beings are experiencing, not just coarse suffering, but subtle suffering too, and have clearly come to understand the reasons why, the causes for suffering, as well as having come to recognize that cessation of this is entirely possible, and they will have experience of the cultivation of the paths that lead to it. So they have not only from this strong determination now to achieve their own liberation, but deep compassion and love for suffering sentient beings. And with their love and compassion, they will be caring for their students, guiding their students, helping beings where they can to gain freedom from the sufferings of samsara. So we should recognize the great qualities of these practitioners. Moreover, there are other practitioners who feel deep compassion for the suffering that beings are experiencing in the lower realms, and thereby give rise to a strong yearning. May no being ever have to suffer in this way. May no being fall into the lower realms, and may those who are suffering in their pain and confusion of the lower realms attain rebirth in a higher realm as a human or God. So here we too should recognize that this is a remarkable motivation. But that being the case, though, whilst there are a variety of really noteworthy, virtuous, and wholesome motivations in the world, none of them can compare to that of a bodhisattva. A bodhisattva's motivation, this motivation of bodhicitta, is incomparable, because it has the supreme goal of leading all beings, without exception, to a state freed of all forms of suffering, every single form, including not just afflictions and their seeds, but their stains too, to achieve all the good qualities, not just the qualities of a good rebirth or liberation from samsara, but the good qualities that come with enlightenment. That is the goal of the bodhisattva, and therefore bodhicitta is incomparable, and hence it's referred to in this verse as distinguished, as precious, as wondrous.
rangi pugule zevi게 samba jamba dan zewa dige pembi semya borwa 진ami pugu 대체del이야 롭장 주부 되고 야 롭장 야고 차야 안에 튕기에다 안지기 변주가 야고 차 미세 야고 중하게 삼다디 배매세게다 배 삼상보 쇼시로와 단 딜레 디셈버 상보다 개와 치마다 심전 랑기 코르 심전디게 차상 안지게 코비 동알에 가서 우리 나중에 두고말에 타지 하다미 토부 톱네 야고레 SMB게 토벌 삼다야데 다디 삼로데 삼 판심디 삼로데 개체와 차기도 와. 나 딜레 개체와데 가르스나 심전 탐주 코비 동알에 심전디 코비 동알에 차랑기 코비 동알에 차 타제 근데 타르바세데 톱나 야고도 데네 타르바 데네 토부 SMB게 삼다야데 다 삼로데 딜레 개체와 차기로 와. 다 딜레 개체와데 심전 탐제 코비 동알에 타와 마세 아니 녀몽보 바샤다 제바 타고도 시균 탐제단 대제 시지 연대 말바 차상의 신고도 지자 다 산제 고방 토고도 선배 삼로데 다 딜레 개체 다 디네자 삼로데 전주 셈디 다 편연 가서리 삼나 삼번에 캬바도 파바레 딜레 하베다 지게 셈지 개체 체와 주연나 다 전주 셈딜레 자라와주 요거데 요마르바다 딜레 하바지 메레 가서네 셈젠 탐제게 삼다야다 아니 셈젠 안에 지게 말바 탐제 삼다야 셈지게 동안나에 동안 지게 마 탐제 써야 된다 아니 시지 연된데 차상 토백이 삼다와인자 아니 삼로디 개체바래 해야 돼 두시네 내가 저기 두시바래 제네다 캬바도 파바 임베 김제 림보시다고 임베 김제로 삼다나 내내 삼당으로 와다
To expand again on why bodhicitta is presented here as wondrous, as precious, and as distinguished, or instead of distinguished one could say exalted, especially exalted, is if we think of the other really noteworthy, wholesome motivations that exist in the world, and we compare them to that of bodhicitta, that is when we recognize of why bodhicitta is so distinguished, precious, and wondrous. So amongst ordinary beings, we often look at the motivation of parents towards their children as praiseworthy, and it certainly is. The love of a parent for their child is really remarkable. And parents have as their focus always to guide their children to develop the very best of qualities within them, both in terms of guiding them in their general character development, as well as ensuring they gain the best education possible. Why? So that their dear child can have a life as free of problems as possible, and a life with as much happiness as possible. This is the deep, deep desire of every parent towards their child. But the limit of this motivation, as praiseworthy as it is it's just focused to that degree at their children and at the happiness and sufferings of this mere life. So therefore, a far greater motivation beyond that of what a parent has for their child is to wish for beings to accumulate the causes that will ensure they do not fall into the lower realms, that they close the door to falling in the lower realms, but will again attain a rebirth in the higher states. And compared to that, there is a far, far greater motivation, which is the desire for beings to attain freedom from samsara in entirety, so that they never, ever again take rebirth anywhere in an uncontrolled manner, where they are forced into a rebirth due to their afflictions and contaminated karma. In other words, the aspiration for all beings to attain liberation. So when you look at these three noteworthy motivations, bodhicitta is beyond all of them, because bodhicitta has as its object each and every being without exception, for them to attain complete freedom of every suffering, as well as the greatest form of all good qualities, which comes with attainment of enlightenment. So therefore, the motivation for bodhisattva, bodhicitta itself, is distinguished from all other good qualities. It is a precious or a jewel-like mind. It is wondrous.
Dene ngana maybe meji chungs. Ngana maybe meji chung la ro. Ngana maybe meji chungs de dene ye sem sabo semjen tam ji dunga se ya da semjen tam ji digyu zhuge ya digyu ne sa yi ge sala gwe ge donda la semjen tam ji san ju go ban to sho se be samlo de ngana me ba nye le ya ma gom nye le ya me ba che da nye ma me ba da de xin ne ngang ju ge nyam nen je je sa ro ge ba chi ngana me ba me ji sa ba ani me to jo pu sum cho ba ani kya ba do pa ba chi ge ba re se chung ba re se chung se ge ba se这些什么是呢？也话这些是宠物的，对那个宠物的也是去。
Then looking at the fourth line, this wonder has only now been born. So that the other translations have the word unprecedented. What this is referring to is that this wondrous, distinguished, precious mind has only now been newly generated. This wondrous mind that has as its goal the determination to guide all beings so that they develop their minds, thereby abandoning the afflictions together with the seeds and imprints and attain the state of enlightenment. This determination to ensure that every being attains the state of enlightenment. This mind which we have never yet generated, now we give rise to the aspiration to be bodhisattvas, to live under the guidance of bodhicitta.
Disugula and the Rangi Dundeg, Rangdun, the Rani, they were to go there, Rani Dundala, Sanjo Komato shows be some of the Kogo Mare, she has some gentamjig Dunda, Sanjo Komato shows some of the Koreagi, Pasha, Rangi Dundala, some Jatam Sanjo Komato shows a big, some of the Kogo Mares. Now, Janju Semba Digi, Janju Sem Yamne, Janju Semba Digi, and some gentam. Dunga se digi se dundala and the semjet sanjogoba tobasho se be change semji gigores the ne change semdi be masibe and chabado papa rimbositabo and nyema dune the gemaya da saba duschine gituge chabado papa ji re said sungorba that.
Summarize the 25th verse is that those beings who have not trained successfully in bodhicitta, or perhaps not at all, but beings who, though nevertheless, have a really remarkable, wholesome motivation, such as parents, or many types of gods, or venerated sages, whilst they have a good motivation or a great desire for some beings, even for themselves, though, they haven't given rise to the motivation of attaining the state of Buddhahood for themselves. So therefore, of course, they have not generated it for others. Whereas bodhisattvas hold dear each and every sentient being without exception equally, wanting, or not wanting, but rather taking responsibility to ensure that each and every being attains the state of enlightenment, is that they commit to guiding each being to abandon all causes of suffering and develop only the causes that lead to happiness, thereby guiding them to attain their own enlightenment. This is the commitment of the bodhisattva, their guiding principle. And now, this distinguished, precious, wondrous mind that has never previously been generated, it has now been given birth to.
Dana nyingbo de le digi garu sungu do sena joge shen de ni la da zhang su de taba chimbi chue nyam le ma ja la da zhang su da mi dang de su gu la anis san jo ko ma to ba shu se ve sam lo dim nang mo su ge ko mya de pa su sha mi lam de ge yo ma la ge yo ma la rang gi don da la de ni gi go shen sem jan tham ji do na sam pa su rang gi don da gi go ma le se je ju sem bi gu le gi wo le che ro da 지사디 아니 건주규라 마기비 김장 가래 제주스미 규라 기위 김장 가래 세다 김장 지고로 와다 기위 김장 가래라도 제사 제주심세 심장 탐지기 상주고방 토벌쇼 세베 제주심디 개와라 유단 kiến起来 对呢 기고고마도 유단 见了嘛对吧这这个也没有哇这个往前波当女波前波当接着前波呢也退没完的这个유단 见了对过来这个这个유단 见开了了对这个贴吧前边个缺马电看lama西电来面真的去特别呢讲是sem 냠는 제 기획이 림바디게 가르르세도 공고르세도 잠 님sem제 탐제 미비게 잠바콤야다 sem제 탐제를 미비게 동안나 잔나니 니지 첨보콤 디고발에 때네 sem제 탐제 고 디기 주야다 게지기 동화된 희세기 sem베게 데니가 하산나버도 줄게 데니게 여도 하산 희세기 시도 sem제네 디기 주야다 동화세된 게지기인시도 켈레요도 다 소수기 제라 소수는 니베도 미도 따요도 제산데 소수 니바미도 제제 데니기자 데니 sem제 동화세 디기도 판도지게 제투엔다 수레세네 산제 고방 교용 군세연데 군의 팀배 산제 고방 딜을 하고 미도 제산 sem제 동화세에 된 디기도에 탑람 초도 유바 산제 고방에샤 제상의 산제 고방 토발지기 세베게 어두시네 곰체네 좀 많이 봐지 줄에 끼어도 제유sem도 줄에 끼고래서 두스끼고래서 지난 대시 파마다 제 태바침에 취념을 맞아 파마로서 받아 장소다 라디기 마게 임자가서 공조 태바침에 기회신이 취 녀다 안디 퇴비게 된 삼곰 되니게 냠니 림바디 마고 말자 제유sem도 줄에 맞게 와래서 도나디송을다 맞게 와래서 제자다 제유sem도 줄에 끼와라 태바침에 기회신이 된 디자인의 취슈 아는 냠는지 림바디기 파 고림디기 하고 와제 된 도시는 도나다 하고도 검제 줄에게 오래서
What we've seen in these two verses thus far, or the way to relate it to these two verses thus far, is that beings, even those beings who are guided by a good motivation, such as parents towards their children, or those gods, as well as venerated sages, that these beings, they have never directly or even in their dreams given rise to the determination to attain enlightenment. But bodhisattvas have. And where this has meaning for us, or how we should apply this understanding, is that why these beings who are now bodhisattvas, why are they bodhisattvas, but these others are not? What marks out a bodhisattva as having become so, whereas the others have not been able to do so? And this is because the bodhisattva has cultivated bodhicitta independent on causes. That those other beings who have not generated bodhicitta, but do still have a good motivation, they lack bodhicitta because they have not cultivated the causes that lead to bodhicitta. A bodhisattva, though, has, through relying on their spiritual teacher, relying on the guidance they receive from the spiritual teacher who's guiding them through the trainings of the Mahayana Dharma, they have relied on their teacher, following his guidance, to cultivate the various levels of training, starting with recognizing one's close and interconnected relationship with all beings, cultivating sincere love for them, wanting them to abide in lasting happiness, and compassion, wanting them to be freed completely of all forms of suffering, and continuing to follow the guidance of their lama, to take this sincere aspiration for beings to abide in happiness, freed of suffering, and developing that much further, developing it to the point where the bodhisattva where the practitioner develops a determination to ensure that beings do achieve that state, where the practitioner is no longer satisfied with a mere aspiration, may beings be happy, may beings be freed of suffering, but this aspiration, under the guidance of their teacher, is developed to the point where I have to make sure this happens. I have to make sure beings attain a state freed from suffering and abide in lasting happiness. So in this way, through the practitioner, relying on their teacher, following the teachings that they are given, cultivate the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility. With this arising in the practitioner, under the guidance of their teacher, they look carefully at themselves and recognize, I do not actually have the ability to fulfill this heartfelt aspiration. I do not yet have the ability to guide beings to attain a state that I am so far from attaining myself. So therefore, so that I can fulfill this aspiration, I have to become a Buddha myself, so that I can guide beings skillfully, perfectly in accordance with their own dispositions, to abandon the causes of suffering and cultivate the causes of lasting happiness. So that I can do this and do this well, I have to become a Buddha for their sake. And thereby bodhicitta is generated. And still under the guidance of their teacher, they are guided to continue meditating in this way again and again until their bodhicitta spontaneously arises. Now uncontrived bodhicitta is generated. And this practitioner is counted amongst the children of the Buddhas, counted amongst the Bodhisattvas. So these are the causes that the Bodhisattvas have cultivated. Whereas these other beings, parents, gods, great sages, they have not yet cultivated those causes.
dentingi mumbe semje tamsan yugoban topro sho sebe samlodi denige da jige jamninje geje semje tamje ge donda jambadan sewa ninjugom denal hasam namda sege di gebale dene jeju sem henni je semje san yugoban topro sho sebe samlo kiyon 제가 denige samlo jikebaina da digi samlodi da jinga jugi sanjuk 디 심비 토네 개와 갈체베네 산지고 고바토베 규체고래 네 파에 규샤투고래 안디마세 안지게 셈제 탐지게 된다 삼다와 인자 안데 직전주 미유 셈제 탐제 방자 묘모바 탐제 바차 뒤바 탐제 톱자 안 산윤된 차상 톱을 셈제로 톱을 뒤바디야 랑이 된다 많이 셈제래야 토바드에게 된다 루시네 셈게와 인자다 셈노데베 마시비 톱침보다 뉴버침보 시우지기레 수능 침보시레 대 지난 데니게 공바이나 아주 그징에마 강래야 샤바나지 디바이나야 디게 좀 고래서다 안징에마 아주 동안 용어에 빠르면바 사샤바나 데니게 자주스면 공바네 디바 다루고 그래서 데니 자주스면 공바이나 지금 저기 진발 마선에 야 지금 간에서 진비 냠네 기회 냠네 간에치번에 개와디에나 산요고바토 규체고래서 내려되는 한 산요고바토 해야지 다 녀르녀 교과 토투고래 산요고바토와인 가제 다 녀녀르녀 산요고바토투와이나 심전에 편바디 녀르 두고래 심전 판바 녀르 두도베나 심전제 누가 녀야디 뉴아 용모 마 교화는 다투에서 누가 녀야디 뉴아마 용고고 말아 디네에서 판도 침보 편연 침보 되는 시월에 세지다 전시 심기 편연디도 숨어와
The stages of training again, where one develops genuine love and compassion for others, wanting them to abide in a state of lasting happiness, never to experience any suffering, and developing this under the guidance of one's lama to the point where the love and compassion is so powerful inside that you no longer feel satisfied with it. This aspiration has to be fulfilled. Merely wishing is not good enough. It's not satisfactory. Beings must achieve this state, and I will ensure that they do achieve a state freed of suffering. This then is the generation of the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility. At that point, the practitioner is guided by their teacher to look at their ability, recognize that they cannot fulfill this determination. No matter how genuine it is, it still cannot be fulfilled. So therefore, the practitioner accepts the responsibility of becoming a Buddha for the sake of others and develops bodhicitta, then whatever they do or every virtuous activity they engaged in, now that bodhicitta is uncontrived, it is every other virtuous mind is conjoined with bodhicitta. So all virtuous activities are conjoined with bodhicitta. And therefore, every virtuous activity leads to the accumulation of so much more merit because it is supported, conjoined with bodhicitta. So how this amplification that comes with the virtuous mind being conjoined with bodhicitta, how this actually works, is that when the practitioner, for example, engages in purification or the abandonment of negativities, so they have this virtuous mind of purifying or abandoning negativities, and is conjoined with bodhicitta. So the practitioner now, the bodhisattva now, is purifying negativities so that they can spiritually develop and be of ever greater benefit to all sentient beings without exception. So because of being conjoined with bodhicitta, their purpose of purifying is so much greater, and therefore the purification is so much more powerful. This is why the mind is called wondrous. Moreover, when the bodhisattva is engaged in virtuous qualities, whether it's in meditation or directly engaging with others, this mind of whether it's generosity or ethics or patience is conjoined with bodhicitta. Therefore, whatever the virtuous activity is, the bodhisattva is engaging in an activity that leads to the accumulation of merit, not just for their own spiritual development, but so that they can benefit each and every being by guiding them to enlightenment. So therefore, even if the activity is one of that's relatively small, because the motivation is that by this merit might lead each and every being to enlightenment, the virtue that meritorious act accumulates is truly wondrous. This is the reason why virtuous minds, when conjoined with bodhicitta, virtuous minds in the mind of a bodhisattva, lead to such rapid spiritual development.
Semjen Tamji Duna, a Semjen Tamji Sanju Guban Tower Show, Sibe Samlodian, Jingan to Gomne, Kiokure Sash, to the Gombana, and the Kiokore Sash Sungorva. Zandang Jig some Nayaji, Jamba the Ninja Sherako Mogoche, and Semjen Tamji Dundaling and Sanju Guban Tower Show, Sibe Samlodi Hane Yado Gombana, the Nigi Janjusim Ki to Ribesine, that did get to Yagalaka, get to Mesarwa. 가르스네고 계기 규긴데 창매래다 기미에 당하도 섬나나제 semjada sanyo goba 토쇼 스베 삼로디 코로 곰바네 자주심다 니제다 사삼남다 세데 마곰바제 semjada 탐조 된다 야니 sanyo goba 토쇼 스베 삼로디 데니지 곰데바이나 엔자주심 기그레 셈베게 다스 내가 기 투그레 셈베 삼로 요시바르바다 데네 삼다나 베제 기투 메서바다 그래서 놓고 전주심 기의 유리 창매래 자다 데네기 창매 최고래 자다 데네 기투에 매바래 자다 데네 개발에 녀바도 녀를 가르고서는 지금 semjen 탐지 동안 자와다 뇌지기 semjen 탐지기 디기르다 뇌 두긴 semjen 탐지 코르 동안에 야 된체 야 상예설 꾸긴 세베 삼로디 좀 많이 버지 기고 있어라다 니 좀 많이 버게 바이나 니 얘기다 다 상여고 껴발라 뇌디 상여고 봐 토고 셈베게 곧니 라슈기 janshi semkiya 안지 파슈킬 마스는 비자당한데 디지고래지 진짜 디인지메지 저 검제 좀만 지마게 봐이나 배지게 janshi sem디 게알레까지 하고 시작했어와.
So if you're hearing these teachings and you give a rise to aspiration to be counted amongst the Bodhisattvas, this will only come through meditating on bodhicitta again and again. One has to become habituated, familiarized with this way of thinking for it to become spontaneous to oneself, uncontrived. But here, I must make this point very clearly. If you think that there is a shortcut, look at that. Because that is a mistaken way to think. If one thinks, perhaps if I just meditate on that final step, may I become a Buddha for the sake of others, and meditate on that again and again, I'll become a Bodhisattva even more quickly. That is a mistake. You will not achieve the generation of bodhicitta without accumulating all the causes. Merely repeating to oneself, I must become a Buddha so that I can lead all beings to the state freed of suffering, will not lead to the generation of bodhicitta. One has to train in a specific sequence. This is the generation of bodhicitta. Truly is a wondrous mind, but it is not something that one can achieve via a shortcut. One has to first develop the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility, this determination to ensure that all beings attain a state of lasting happiness and freed of suffering. That can only follow from the generation of love and compassion, the sincere wish for beings to abide in happiness, freed of suffering. But to actually generate love and compassion themselves, these require prior causes. Merely wishing for others to have happiness and to be freed of suffering will not lead to the generation of actual love and compassion. Because the happiness one is longing for beings to have comes about in dependence on cultivating a wide number of causes, and in particular also includes them beings being freed of suffering. And for beings to be freed of suffering, one really needs to be looking at beings be freed of those causes that lead to suffering. So therefore, to generate actual love and compassion, one needs to have trained one's mind before this indefinite emergence, where one has given rise to the determination for oneself to gain freedom from their afflictions and their causes, compassion, and thereby attain a state of lasting happiness, love. So therefore, the training in definite emergence is the indispensable foundation to generate love and compassion, which is required to then generate the altruistic attitude, which is the indispensable prior cause to the generation of bodhicitta. This is the unmistaken and absolutely necessary way to train so as to actually become a bodhisattva.
Jambada Nichini di Jama Mayibaski ore. Chizada Jambada Nijini di Jama Mayibakiwala, Dambo Jambada Niju Komia, Simshu Kivala, that's all the Karaku in Anzugi. Jevache some died. Dambo some died, the Carson, Rang chasing Sambata, Shen Jevasibe, Samlo Nidigi, Chike, Gunda, Yenden Gratitude to pay. Rang chasing Samlo Digi, Jebana, and the Ranshelia Pando Kanaka Yungdu, Digi Kanga Garis Yungdu, Rang chasing Samlo Shukchimbo Jebana, Delia, and the Karajichelia, Kanga Kanaka Yungdu. Chesnada, Shen Jebas in the Samlo Shukchimbo Jebana, Dela de Karaka Yungdu Sibe. The Rang chasing na, Shen chasing Samlo Nidi, Gunda Yende Koroni, Gunda Samta. Yuenda Samta, two Shinan to Shimbuchede, the Rang chasing some Leadu, Rang chasing Shukaze Chavene, Di Karchidu, the Rangi chasing Shuchimbolada, Rangi Dunda to the Kichi, Rangi Dunda to the Kichi, Di Dunda to Dundala, and Azuke, Chike, Kondokia, Kohataya, Zumeshia, Chaza, the Jalia, Tsuzuchea, Gunjo, Chazad, Rang chasing the Leadwas, and Rang chasing. Gyöndini 용도 세비게 gyöndike 가르가 랑치진들레 폐에 반도에 요르바도 gyön나 폐에 니 용고때 랑치진들레 삼단의 gyön가는 가르치 용도 두스는 제바체 되네는 현제바 현레 제바진바 랑제바 현레 제바진바나 현제바진바 삼로디게 될때네 판딩 폐에 가르 용도 지산 될때네 현지 삼로였나 현리에 폐비 자와치야 융하게 현리에 폐비 자와치 현리에 폐비 자와치나 현리에 디규주 현리에 디규주나 현심제다 가보체 기보죠 가보차 라라야 지게 되어가차다 소소하게 와서야 아니 소소이네 현리에 폐버도 정말이야 현망보징이 가보치선 빼야고 중소에서 배 소소나 디규야 또 진행은 지게 랑지제나 현지진이기 꽤나 연된데 가라가라 용도 두스 제바제야다 제자다 랑 지즈나 현재바 준비니데 시랑다 현니 가르쳐봐도 캬 가르치네 캬바 차기도 비두신의 심지에 진짜 랑세다 현니디 니가다 대화되고 동안에도 직벌이도 왔습니다. 도시는 랑지제당 현지진이기 꽤나 연대 직도전 심주제 제바제네 제도 다 랑지진이 꽤디게 된데된데도 꽤지에 꽤동 현지진이 연지 삼로디기 파 연된된데도 연된 통요도 아니 되네게 연된 통요도 랑신기고 되네게 연된 식 셈리아 셈딩네데 아디 이와 셈베 셈딩네 판도 삼로지 예바로 니어도 고슈기 안 현리디기 두나 세션디기 주나 셈베 삼로 진짜 다젠 동아세나 셈베 삼로 진짜 현기 된다라 디기 주에도 동아세를 라니 갈래가지게나 라니 가르치나 가요 말씀베게 르랑르다지 현디디기 주야게 디기 주나 셈베 삼로다 아니 된데게 삼로디 요투고와 데네요도다 라산남다디 데네기 에너지 기내기야 데네 자주섬 길게 와요 거래 사실 제자다는 전주 챔비에 가서고 제자 시 가서래 자주섬 냠는지다기 담보 랑치진 현지진 이기 괴연 삼다제 데네 현지진 유연대 통 랑치진 괴통여도 데 현지 발 현랑된 도르제 랑 현제버진데 네 지금 아 랑리先做저先接吧真正都是念的这的那现在刚刚的个搞了月份呢让你给连着爱情跟什么个人都解决都现在才是什么就了结果了现在其实才是什么阶段给念的人把的大些念这个团呢念的结果了现在他全球前边个才是什么就了结个他不啷的人送过了吧人家就是当帮啊这个当帮让其那先接近什么了结吧当帮结吧结军事上当忙不就军事上当把了的那你说的好过对的呢你讲你就讲这那데네 라산 남다고 데네 심지한테 미사요고 봐 도바지게 집에 전심 깨라게 데네 시용고래세다 디 데네 마고 바이나 다 전심 깨 투야게 가보자고래세 송고를 받아
So as I've just mentioned, in order to generate bodhicitta, it is indispensable to train one's mind following the presented sequence of trainings. There is no shortcut around this. One has to train in this way. Moreover, one needs to use reasoning in order to be able to get deep within our mind, clearing away any hesitation we have to acting purely, completely, wholeheartedly in accordance with the teachings in all circumstances. Without using extensive reasoning, it's very difficult to transform deep-rooted habit patterns. So I mentioned that bodhicitta is preceded by the generation of the altruistic attitude, which itself is preceded by the generation of love and compassion. To generate love and compassion, one needs to utilize extensive reasoning. And here, in our text, in engaging the Bodhisattva's way of life, Shantideva presents the technique of equalizing and exchanging self with others. This is the technique that he relied on to generate genuine love and compassion, the indispensable prerequisites to the altruistic attitude and then bodhicitta. The way to meditate on grasping at oneself as dear and holding others as dear is to reflect on the faults of grasping at oneself as dear and the benefits of holding others as dear. So these two minds usually translated as the self-cherishing mind and the other-cherishing mind. So when reflecting on the faults of grasping at oneself as dear, one recognizes that when one holds oneself as first and foremost, one will easily justify putting others aside. One will easily justify placing our needs, the fulfillment of our needs, first and foremost, even at the expense of others. In fact, one will justify the fulfillment of our own needs, even at the harm of others. We will justify it and see it as worthwhile. Moreover, through this process, we will continue as we have done up to now, creating the causes for suffering. We will talk to others in a way that leads to harm for them, but actually we are creating causes for our own suffering. We'll interact with others in a physical way, in a way that brings harm to them, but actually really we're creating the causes that will lead us to suffer. So to the extent that we continue to grasp at ourselves, first and foremost holding ourselves as dear, we will continue to remain bound in the suffering realms of samsara. Whereas on the other hand, if we put the needs of others first, if we hold others as dear, we will, by holding others as dear, placing their needs first and foremost, will easily act ethically, restraining our mind from coming under the influence of the afflictions. Moreover, we'll easily give of ourselves in varying ways to others because we hold them as dear. In this way, easily practice generosity. So in these ways, we come to reflect how if we hold others as dear, placing their needs first and foremost, we will rapidly accumulate the causes that will aid our spiritual development. Because when we hold others as dear, what we do certainly directly benefits them, but it's us ourselves who will experience the ripening result of this positive karma. So here the meditation is repeatedly looking at the faults of grasping at oneself as dear and the benefits of holding others as dear. Doing this in meditation and then throughout one's day, guarding our mind, watching what the results is of coming under the influence of grasping at oneself as dear, or at other times the results of holding oneself as holding others as dear, seeing what causes we are accumulating. Moreover, in this process of reflecting on the faults of grasping at oneself as dear and the benefits of holding others as dear, we also then look at what are the differences between ourselves and others. On the superficial level, we can point to many differences, but these we readily recognize are superficial. Beneath this, at a more fundamental level, we recognize that everything that motivates ourselves is the desire for happiness, and thereby, and to achieve this, to overcome suffering. And that this is not something unique to myself, but is shared by everyone that I know and I have ever known across every life. Each and every being is guided by this wish. I only want to be happy. And thereby, what I'm doing now is to achieve my happiness and overcome suffering. This fundamental level, we are all the same. The only way we can really differentiate between ourselves and others is in terms of the number of beings, where we are only one and others are innumerable. So when you reflect in this way, repeatedly over a sustained period, a deep understanding will arise from within us. Our very heart will be opened and transformed. It will become impossible to ignore the needs of others. It will be impossible not to hold them as dear. Readily, spontaneously, a closeness to others will arise. We'll feel them as precious, or experience them as being precious to us. In this way, love and compassion will arise within us. Then, the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility, that too will readily arise, and bodhicitta. So therefore, to generate actual love and compassion, it's indispensable to meditate on reasoning deeply, repeatedly, on the faults of grasping at oneself as dear and the benefits of holding others as dear. This is the method of equalizing and exchanging self for others, the method that Shantideva himself used and taught in this precious text. So therefore, this is how we need to meditate. Because through this proper sequence, we will all become bodhisattvas. Without following this sequence, we will struggle to progress.
Tiki Tamjiki Juni, Bashrido, Sabek Samdane, then Shansimjan, the Devata Temple Show, Sabek Samlashta, the Nesimjan Tamju, Dunga Tower Show, Sabek Samlashta, that the Naking Azuki, Gomyo, Dambo Ranchis, and that is Jevache, Samdane, Nechevache, Saitini, Dedi Chelan, Simjan Sanyokoman Tor, Kasar, Simjan, the Devata Temple Show, Sembegeta, Jogomro, Dusjem. Yang dine simjan de dunga da jawa sho sembe ke chi du dine ke samda and dine anda je simjan je da dine yang de chile de simjan je dewa da demba da dunga de dewa da dengu du dunga da jagu du chiza da simjan dewa da denas dewa da dunga jagu du di kan stegre la ne simjan le digi duye de la digi yoe gyu sa chu je jamni ko so gyu gewa chu chu je and 개와 줍지 걔한테 대비 규사죠. 되니기 동아래 동아이 년보 다음에 보도be 셰랍 검주 콘솔에 때 되는 검주제 되는 게 있으면 담주 골비 동아들 저기 샘비게 삼나 계jem. 계어도 지난 콘솔이야 샘젤이야 디기용의 유 개와 파신 중에 냠을 나서 받아 동아이 윤용모배 자와 년보 된생기 년보 다음에 보도be 셰랍 된제 혼자 냠조 렌중에 산제 수사일 고인스 디인장에 섬제 담시선 요거 도버쇼 샘비게 데네게 아주 제 삼다웨나 다당보 데네게 마이 바람제네 되서 두친다 데네지 아주 니네리야 제 까망아스 나로려 데네지 삼다투비네 단지 배하고로 삼는 샘바상보 데네게 림바디파 그러면 지나라 살지 공유촌에 가와서 보러 와다가 저 데네 고급 공부로 와 데네 이제 잠당 공부잖아 내가 저기 뒤서다 소소라기 뉴바드 바베게 다야네 양도도 까지 찍고 말네 당아주 공투야기 공약이 배수셔야 돼 알아서 차사 다 계침벌에 라지 계침벌에 차사 지발에 데네 된자나 저기 내가 먹고지 가브리엘 야지 내가 맨 아직 려려지 어스 심베 레로라 제시네 데네기 제제래 갈래 하고도 용도와 이내 당아 저기 데네질이야 직 데네 뜻스스를 진한저 강투도 제야 차사 제와데 계침벌 차고라 데네 제도 왜는다고 또 티브소네 티브산에 겸좀 말 메르세딩 아주기 차발 티브드 바 제제 얘기지는 바마마 누구를 세우고 디나싱아서 데네 제 공부 지는 아주 야기 줘야 임바데 지바 다 쳐바로 봐 지바로 봐 당서 차상 어두시야 차사다 디링 다 가상이 다 데네 롭산티 주에 당서 데네 개념내 제와데 계심벌에 자지 송고로 와다.
So therefore I encourage you to meditate on the faults of grasping at oneself as dear, second, and together with this, the benefits of holding others as dear. And secondly, also on looking at how there really is no difference between ourselves and others. The fundamental level, we really are all the same, longing to abide in happiness, never wanting to experience any problems or difficulties. When you're meditating on these and the following steps, I also encourage you to alternate between analytical meditation and placement meditation. This is important. You analyze, you think for yourself, thinking of reasons, and as a wholesome mind arises in you, then place your mind on that, or in other words, abide with that, rest with that. Don't analyze any further. And then, when that mind fades, then once again, analyze, continuing to use reasons. And then the virtuous mind will arise again. Place your mind on it. When it fades, once again, analyze. And this is important, because the purpose of analytical meditation is to gain a deep understanding of the topic you're meditating on. The purpose of placement meditation is to become familiar with what is now arising, familiar with this wholesome way of thinking, and not to quickly move on to further analysis. So these two, analytical and placement meditation, need to be alternated together in every meditation. So do the meditation in this way, generating through reflecting on the faults of holding oneself as dear and the benefits of holding others as dear, and the equality between beings. This way, give rise to a wish. May all beings attain happiness. May all beings be freed from suffering, so love and compassion. And thereby generate the determination afterwards. May I bring this about. In fact, I will bring it about. I will not leave it as a mere aspiration. I will lead all beings to the state where they are freed of suffering and abide in lasting happiness. But to do this, I don't yet have the capacity, so I have to become a Buddha. So in this way, we do our best, we generate bodhicitta, and thereafter we remind ourselves, now to actualize this goal, I have to accumulate merit, purify negativities. I need to accumulate merit so I can be of more benefit to others, have greater qualities to benefit them, and I need to purify my faults, my obscurations, again, so that I can be of greater benefit to others. And thereafter, one can engage in the varying meditations from generosity up to the wisdom realizing emptiness. So I've just recounted the meditation with some explanation in a couple of minutes. I encourage you to do this meditation every day, even if it's just that a couple of minutes, maybe even just 5 minutes. Just repeat these stages with a little bit of depth. And if you do so repeatedly over a sustained period, you will experience change. But if you can only do this sporadically, such as when we're in class together, you'll be gathering imprints. But change will come about with some difficulty. For that to come, you need to do these reflections repeatedly over a sustained period. So no life is busy, and no one is often tired. But I encourage you to do this as often as you can, even if it is just a few minutes in a day. Because just like if you've got a bucket of water that is catching drips from a leaking pipe, slowly that bucket will fill up. And this is what we're trying to do within ourselves. This is how we try and develop good qualities. The key point here is repetition, and then change will come. So thank you. We're a few minutes over time. Sorry for that, but thank you very much.